Stop. Listen. Something invisible is happening right now. Someone somewhere is quietly controlling you. Not with force, not with words, but with subtle gestures, silence, and the smallest manipulations you never noticed. Have you ever felt unsettled after a conversation? Or wondered why you can't stop thinking about someone's smile, their words, or even their absence? That's not coincidence. That's psychological warfare, silent, relentless, unavoidable. Over the next chapters, you'll see what others don't. The invisible moves, the secret power plays, and the hidden ladders of social control. By the end, you won't just notice manipulation. You'll understand it, predict it, and quietly turn the game in your favor. Are you ready to enter the battlefield that no one talks about? Listen closely. Your mind is the prize. Before we begin, a massive thank you to @Katie17 for his incredible comment. Your words remind us why awareness matters, and they inspire everyone watching to stay alert, strong, and unshakable. You are amazing, and to everyone watching right now, I want to hear from you. What moments or hidden moves have you noticed in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your insight might just open someone else's eyes. If you want to dig deeper into the hidden battles around us, hit the like button, subscribe to stay updated, and share this video with someone who needs to see the unseen. Let's build a community of sharp minds and discerning eyes, because together we see what others try to hide. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Smile That Dominates. Hidden Power in Polite Conversations. You know the feeling. You've just walked away from a conversation. It was pleasant, civil. There were smiles, nods, perhaps even a compliment or two. And yet, as you take your first solitary step away from that person, you feel it. A faint, almost imperceptible pressure in your chest. A dull ache of deflation. You replay the words in your head, searching for the insult, the raised voice, the overt challenge. But there was none. It was just a chat. So why do you suddenly feel like you need to sit down? Why do you feel smaller? Some people never raise their voice, and yet you always leave feeling that way. Maybe you've even had the thought, maybe I'm too sensitive. You dismiss the feeling. You tell yourself they were just being nice. You carry on with your day, carrying the weight of an argument that never happened, a battle that left no visible scars. But the weight is real, and the war is silent. Let's go back. Think of the last time you were in a conversation with someone who has a way of making everything about them. But they do it so smoothly, so politely, that you'd sound crazy for pointing it out. They listen to your story, their head tilted, a kind smile on their face, and when you're done, they don't comment on what you said. Instead, they say, "That reminds me of the time I..." And just like that, your reality is swept aside. It's not an attack. It's a gentle, smiling redirect. They haven't invalidated you with a shout. They've simply erased you with a story. And you're left standing there, holding the empty space where your vulnerability used to be, wondering why you suddenly feel so invisible. This is the first battlefield, the realm of micro-dominance. Control rarely looks aggressive. In fact, it often looks charming. It wears a pleasant expression and uses the vocabulary of kindness to build a cage around your self-esteem. Consider the phrase, "I'm just trying to help you." It's a beautiful sentence. It sounds like support. But when it's used to preface unsolicited advice after you've shared a personal win, it becomes a scalpel. You excitedly tell them about a new goal, a dream you're nurturing. They smile, lean in, and say, "Oh, I'm just trying to help you." But have you thought about how risky that is? I'd hate to see you get hurt. On the surface, it's care. Underneath, it's a power play. They have taken your moment of joy and injected it with their fear, their doubt. They have positioned themselves as the wiser, more cautious. You don't feel protected, though. You feel doubted. You feel a flicker of shame for your own excitement. You thank them for their concern, the smile frozen on your face, and a tiny part of your dream withers in the silence. Then there's the compliment that isn't, the one that validates you while subtly reminding you of your place. You're so articulate. A simple phrase often said with genuine surprise. It's a pat on the head. It sounds like praise, but the unspoken message is, I'm impressed you can speak this well because I didn't expect you to. It doesn't build you up. It reestablishes the speaker's assumption of their own superiority. They are the judge, handing down a favorable verdict. And you, for a moment, accept the role of the defendant, grateful for the approval, instead of recognizing the inherent insult in the surprise. Why do we accept this? Because to call it out would be to break the sacred rule of polite society. Don't make things awkward. To say, why does my story always remind you of yourself, or your help feels like a criticism, would be to brand yourself as difficult, emotional, or paranoid. And so you internalize the discomfort. You turn it inward. You question your own perception. But here is the surprising insight, the one that changes everything. Your discomfort is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of detection. That small, sinking feeling you get, that's not paranoia. That's your psychological immune system flagging an intruder. The war is silent, so your body learns to speak in whispers. The tightness in your jaw, the sudden urge to end the conversation, the vague sense of unease, these are your early warning systems. They are detecting a dominance maneuver disguised as a polite gesture. Think about the person who, mid-conversation, glances at their phone while you're speaking. They look up, smile apologetically, and say, I'm so sorry, go on, I'm listening. They've just communicated, without raising their voice, that your words are not as urgent, not as important as whatever is on that screen. They have claimed the high ground. They have demonstrated that they can afford to be distracted because they are in control. They are granting you their attention, and they can withdraw it at any moment. And you, needing that attention, carry on, grateful for the scraps. This is the psychological architecture of a silent war. It's fought in the space between words. It's in the pause that lasts just a second too long before they answer your question. A pause that makes you feel the need to fill the silence, to repeat yourself, to justify your inquiry. It's in the way they frame your emotional reaction as a problem. You express frustration, and they calmly respond, you seem upset. Let's talk about this when you're feeling more rational. The aggressor becomes the peacemaker. The victim becomes the hysteric. They win by offering you a truce you didn't know you needed, for a war they started. And the truly exhausting part? You can't fight it. If you raise your voice, you lose. If you show anger, you prove them right. The only weapon they give you is the one that will destroy you. Self-doubt. Am I too sensitive? Am I overthinking this? No. You are sensing a truth that polite society doesn't want you to name. You are standing in the middle of a social transaction, and someone is subtly, silently stealing the currency of your self-worth. They are leaving you with a smile and a lighter sense of self, and you're left holding the bag, wondering why it feels so heavy. You walk away from these encounters, and you spend the next hour processing an argument that never took place. You think of the perfect retort, the witty comeback that would have exposed the game. But it's too late. The moment has passed. The smiling victor has moved on, unaware, or perfectly aware, of the small dent they left in your spirit, so you learn to live with it. You learn to absorb the micro-invalidations, the soft dismissals, the patronizing praise. You tell yourself it's just the way they are. You tell yourself to be less sensitive. You build a tolerance to the subtle poison, not realizing that a tolerance is not an immunity. It's just an ability to suffer quietly. But if a smile can be used to dominate, if a kind word can be a cage, what happens when the weapon isn't words at all? What happens when, instead of a smile, you are met with nothing? If politeness can dominate, what happens when silence is used instead? Chapter 2. The Weapon of Silence. Silence is not absence. It's positioning. You have felt it. The moment a conversation doesn't end, but simply stops. You've asked a question, it hung in the air, reasonable and clear, and instead of an answer, you were given nothing. Just the slow, heavy passing of seconds. Maybe they looked away. Maybe they simply looked at you, their face a placid, unreadable mask. And in that void, something shifted. The power in the room tilted, and you felt the sudden, desperate urge to fill the space. Don't. This is the second battlefield. The weapon is not the sharp word, but the strategic withdrawal of all words. It is the silence that speaks louder than any shout. And it is one of the most effective tools of control ever devised, because it bypasses your logic and attacks your deepest human need. The need for connection, for validation, for a response. Think of the last time someone you cared about went quiet. Not the peaceful silence of companionship, but a heavy, deliberate quiet. A silence with intent. You could feel the difference, couldn't you? It pressed against you. Your mind began to race. What did I say? What did I do? Are they angry? Are they leaving? And so you did what you were designed to do. You moved toward them. You filled the void. You offered a gentle question. Is everything okay? And then, when met with more silence, you offered an apology for a crime you weren't sure you committed. You offered an explanation. You offered a piece of yourself, just to get a sound, any sound in return. This is the mechanism. The silent person has discovered a profound truth. He who withdraws controls. By removing their presence, their words, their emotional availability, they create a vacuum. And nature and human psychology abhors a vacuum. You will rush to fill it. You will bridge the gap. You will give ground, offer concessions, and surrender your emotional stability, all for the chance to restore the connection they have strategically severed. What are they doing during their silence? They are watching, they are waiting, they are letting you do all the work. They are learning exactly how far you will go to reach them, how much you will sacrifice to break through the wall they have built. Your frantic energy is their data. Your anxiety is their confirmation of power. Consider the fight that isn't a fight. You have a disagreement, a minor tension. You want to resolve it. You want to talk it through. But the other person simply withdraws. They say calmly with a slight shrug, "I need some space." And then they give you space. A cold, endless expanse of it. They don't call. They don't text. They don't explain. They just stop. And you are left holding the burden of the connection all by yourself. You replay the argument. You analyze your every word. You convince yourself that you were the one who was wrong simply because they are the one who is gone. Their absence becomes a verdict. Their silence becomes a judgment. You begin to chase a ghost, trying to win back a person who hasn't been attacked, but has simply chosen to retreat to higher ground. The surprising insight here is this. The silent treatment is not a lack of communication. It is a highly specific form of communication. It is a message that says, "You are not worth my words. Your feelings are not important enough for me to address. My presence is a gift I can revoke at any time." It is a declaration of dominance delivered through absence. It is a way of saying, "I matter more than this relationship, and I will prove it by letting it dangle over the edge while you scramble to pull it back." And the cruelty is amplified by its deniability. If you confront them later, if you say, "You were ignoring me," and it hurt, they have the perfect defense. They can smile, tilt their head, and say, "I wasn't ignoring you. I just had nothing to say. I was giving you space. I don't know why you're so upset." And suddenly, the victim of the silence is painted as the aggressor, the needy one, the one who creates drama out of thin air. You are left holding not just the burden of the connection, but the shame of your own need for it, so you learn to hate your own need. You tell yourself to stop caring. You try to become stone too. You try to match their quiet with your own. But it's a game you cannot win, because they are playing by different rules. Their silence is a choice. Yours would be a reaction. They are withdrawing from a position of strength. You would be withdrawing from a position of pain. One is a strategy, the other is a wound. This is the internal conflict at the heart of the silent war, the war between chasing and detaching. Your instincts scream at you to pursue, to fix, to reconnect. But your mind whispers that to chase is to lose. And so you are frozen, caught in the no man's land between your need for resolution and your fear of appearing weak. You check your phone for the 100th time. You craft careful, casual messages only to delete them. You are a prisoner of their quiet. But here's what you must understand. The silence is a test. It is designed to make you uncomfortable, to make you prove your worth. The moment you rush in to fill it, you have given away the answer. You have shown that their presence is more important to you than your own peace. You have confirmed their position at the center of your universe. The only way to win is to not play, to let the silence sit, to recognize that a void only has power if you fear the emptiness, to breathe into the quiet and realize that you are still whole, still here, still breathing. It is the hardest thing you will ever do, to sit in the silence they have built and refuse to build a bridge across it. To let them sit alone on their island of cold control. Because silence, when you stop fearing it, becomes a mirror. It reflects back exactly what the other person is choosing to give. And sometimes, what it reflects is their own emptiness, their own need for power, disguised as a need for peace. But if silence is a weapon of withdrawal, if it's the art of creating a void, what is the opposite? What happens when someone doesn't withdraw, but instead focuses? If silence can be used to make you feel invisible, imagine what it feels like when someone decides to truly, deeply see you, and what they might do with that vision. But silence isn't the most powerful move, attention is. Chapter 3. Attention Economics. Who decides your worth? You know the moment. The phone lights up, a notification. Your heart skips, just a fraction, just enough. Someone has thought of you. Someone has reached across the digital void and offered proof that you exist in their world. You pick it up. You read it, and for a second you feel seen. Then you put it down, and you wait for the next one. Whoever controls attention controls value. This is the law of the modern battlefield. Not loud pronouncements, not overt dominance, but something far more precise. The economy of focus. The economy of focus. And you are trading in this market every single day. Whether you know it or not, think about it. When someone gives you their full attention, their eyes locked on yours, their phone face down, their body turned toward you without distraction, what does that feel like? It feels like importance. It feels like worth. In that moment they are saying, without words you matter. Nothing else exists right now. Only you. And when that attention is withdrawn, when their eyes drift to the screen over your shoulder, when their responses become clipped, when they are physically present but psychologically absent, you feel the shift, the loss. You feel devalued. This is the hidden architecture of silent warfare. Attention is not just focus. It is the new currency. And those who understand its power can make you rich with a glance or bankrupt you with a turn back. You have been on both sides of this transaction. Perhaps you've been the one waiting for a text reply that never comes. You check your phone, you check it again. You convince yourself they're busy, they'll respond soon. The message must have been lost. But hours pass, then a day, and when the reply finally arrives, casual, unapologetic, as if no time has passed at all, you feel a rush of relief so potent it almost masks the truth. They decided your worth and you accepted it. The surprising insight, the one that shifts everything, is this. The person who withholds attention is not passive. They are not simply distracted or busy. They are trading. They are creating scarcity. And scarcity, as any economist will tell you, drives up demand. Think of the people in your life whose attention feels like a privilege. The charismatic friend who makes you feel like the only person in the room when they speak to you, but only for a few minutes before they move on. The partner whose affection flows freely one day and freezes the next. The colleague who responds to your ideas with enthusiastic engagement, then ignores your emails for a week. You find yourself working for their focus. You craft better messages. You time your approaches. You perform, and they haven't asked you to do any of this. They've simply understood, consciously or not, that attention given inconsistently is more powerful than attention given freely. The unpredictable reward, the variable schedule. It is the same mechanism that makes a slot machine addictive. You pull the lever, not knowing if you'll get nothing, a small win or a jackpot, and you keep pulling. You are pulling the lever on human connection, and sometimes the machine pays out, a warm smile, a deep conversation, a moment of being truly heard. It feels so good that you forget all the times the lever gave you nothing. But who decided the rules of this game? Who decided that their attention is the prize and yours is merely the cost of entry. This is the internal conflict that quietly erodes you, the chase for validation you didn't ask to want. You know logically that your worth is not determined by someone else's focus. You know that a notification is not a measure of your value. And yet, when the phone stays dark, when the silence stretches, when the person across from you checks their watch while you're speaking, you feel it. The dip, the quiet question, am I not enough right now? You are not weak for feeling this. You are human. Attention is the raw material of connection. From the moment you were born, you learned that being seen meant being safe. A parent's gaze meant protection. A caregiver's focus meant you would be fed, held, cared for. Your nervous system is wired to scan for attention the way it scans for food and shelter. It is survival, dressed in social clothing. And so the battlefield shifts. The war is no longer about words or silence alone. It is about who gets to look and who gets to be looked at, who grants focus and who must earn it. Consider the person who speaks and the room listens, not because they are loud, but because they are rare with their words. They don't fill space, they create it. When they finally speak, everyone leans in. They have mastered the economy. They know that attention, hoarded and then strategically released, becomes power. Their silence before speaking is not emptiness. It is accumulation. They are gathering value, and when they spend it on themselves. Meanwhile, those who give attention freely, the listeners, the supporters, the ones who nod and affirm and ask thoughtful questions, often find their currency devalued. Their focus becomes expected, taken for granted. They become the background, the audience, the ones who applaud while others take the stage. Have you felt this? Have you been the one holding space for others, only to realize no one is holding space for you? Have you given your attention generously, openly, only to find that when you need it returned, the person you're speaking to is already looking at their phone? It is a quiet devastation, not a battle won with fists or fury, but with the slow, steady erosion of being unseen. And yet, there is a truth beneath the truth, a realization that can shift how you move through this silent war. It is this: you are also a trader in this economy. You decide where your attention goes. You decide who receives the gift of your focus. And if you have been giving it away too cheaply, if you have been flooding the market with your presence while others hoard theirs, you can change the terms. You can learn to be scarce with your attention, not cruel, not withdrawn, but intentional. You can learn to look at someone and truly see them. And then, when the moment is right, you can learn to look away, to let the silence sit, to let your focus be something they earn, not something they assume. But this is dangerous ground, because when you start treating attention as currency, you risk becoming the very thing that hurt you. You risk trading connection for control. The question is not whether to participate in the economy. You have no choice. You are in it. The question is, are you spending your attention or are you investing it? And are the people you give it to worthy of the deposit? Because here is the final truth of this battlefield. Attention once given cannot be taken back. It is the only currency you possess that is truly finite. Every moment you spend focused on someone else is a moment you are not focused on yourself. Every glance at a screen is a glance away from your own life. So who decides your worth? In the end, it must be you. But that is the hardest transaction of all, to turn your attention inward, to find value in your own company. To sit with yourself and say, without a notification, without an audience, without anyone watching, I am enough. It is the one trade no one else can make for you. And when attention becomes unpredictable, when it is given in bursts and withdrawn in silence, when you never know if you will be seen or ignored, addiction begins. Not to a substance, but to a person, to the hope of their focus, to the next hit of being valued by someone who has taught you that their attention is the only proof of your worth. You know where this leads. You felt the pull, the obsession, the craving for one more moment of being truly seen. But what if the person giving that attention knows exactly what they're doing? What if the unpredictability is not accidental, but engineered? When attention becomes a weapon, the one who wields it doesn't just control your worth, they control your mind. Chapter 4. Intermittent Reward. The most powerful hook isn't pleasure, it's unpredictability. You know exactly what this feels like, even if you've never named it. The person who is warm one day and cold the next. The friend who pulls you close with intimate conversation, then disappears for weeks. The partner who says, "I love you," with such conviction on Tuesday, and by Friday acts as if you're barely acquainted. You tell yourself they're complicated. You tell yourself they're going through something. You tell yourself anything to make sense of the whiplash, but your brain isn't telling you stories. Your brain is doing something far more primal. It's getting hooked. Let's go back to a laboratory in the 1950s. A psychologist named Skinner placed a pigeon in a box with a lever. When the pigeon pecked the lever, food appeared. The pigeon learned quickly. Peck lever, get food. Simple, reliable, and eventually boring. The pigeon pecked only when hungry. Then Skinner changed the rules. Now when the pigeon pecked the lever, food appeared only sometimes. Randomly, unpredictably, something remarkable happened. The pigeon went insane for that lever. It pecked constantly, compulsively, even when full, even when exhausted. The uncertainty had transformed a simple action into an obsession. You are the pigeon, the lever is their attention, and the food is the moment they finally see you, validate you, pull you close, and make you feel like you matter. This is the architecture of intermittent reward, and it is the most powerful psychological weapon ever designed, because it doesn't target your logic, it targets your chemistry. When something good happens predictably, your brain releases dopamine, the pleasure chemical, but it adapts quickly. The thrill fades, you normalize. But when something good happens unpredictably, your brain floods with dopamine not just when you receive the reward, but during the anticipation. The uncertainty itself becomes pleasurable. The waiting, the wondering, the hoping. You become addicted not to the person, but to the possibility of them. Think of the person you can't stop thinking about, the one who occupies mental space they haven't earned. Is it the person who calls you every night at 8? Reliable and steady? Or is it the one who texts you at midnight, then vanishes for 3 days, leaving you to replay every word, every glance, every possible meaning? You know the answer. It's the unpredictable one, the one who keeps you guessing, the one who makes you work for their warmth. And here is the cruelty you don't want to admit. You are not addicted to them. You are addicted to the version of them that appears just often enough to keep you hoping. You are chasing a ghost they deliberately create. The surprising insight, the one that shifts everything, is this. The inconsistency is not a flaw in their character. It is the feature. The hot and cold is not confusion. It is engineering. Whether they know it or not, they have discovered that their unpredictability is their power. By never letting you settle, never letting you feel secure, they ensure that you are always thinking about them, always wondering, always reaching. You ask yourself, why do I crave their approval? Why does their opinion matter more than anyone else's? Why does a kind word from them lift my entire day, and a cold silence from them destroy it? It is not because they are special. It is because they are inconsistent. Your nervous system has been trained to scan for them, to prioritize them, to treat them as a source of survival. Inconsistent love feels more valuable than consistent love, because your brain had to work for it. You earned it. You survived the silence and were rewarded with warmth. The message is clear: keep trying, keep reaching. Maybe this time they'll stay. But they never stay, they never will. Because if they stayed, the game would end, the addiction would break, and they would lose their hold. Consider the relationship that keeps you trapped long after it's over. The friendship that drains you more than fills you. The dynamic where you give and receive just enough to keep giving. Look closely. You will find the pattern of intermittent reward woven through every thread. The good times are not good enough to sustain you, but they are just good enough to make you forget the bad. The warmth is not warm enough to heal you, but it is warm enough to make you endure the cold. This is the internal conflict that consumes you silently, the war between knowing and feeling. You know they are bad for you. You know the pattern. You can name it, describe it, see it clearly when you step back. But when they appear, when the warmth returns, When they look at you with those eyes and say the words you've been waiting to hear, the knowing vanishes, the feeling takes over, and you are back at the lever, pecking, hoping, believing that this time the food will finally come and stay. You are not broken for feeling this. You are human. Your brain was not designed for this level of manipulation. It was designed for a world where consistency meant safety and unpredictability meant danger. But in the silent war, the rules are inverted. Unpredictability is used to create safety's opposite, a permanent state of yearning. The quietest battles are fought in this space, the space between their messages, the space between their warmth and their withdrawal, the space where you sit alone, wondering what you did wrong, when the truth is you did nothing wrong. You simply walked into a game where the rules are designed for you to lose. And sometimes, the person holding the lever doesn't even know they're playing. They are acting out their own wounds, their own fears, their own desperate need for control. They are addicted to your addiction. Your chase validates their worth. Your hunger proves their power. You are two people trapped in a dance, neither of you consciously choreographed, but both of you perpetuate. So what do you do when you recognize the pattern? When you see the lever for what it is, you don't try to understand them better. You don't wait for them to change. You don't hope that one day the warmth will become permanent. You step back from the lever. You let the silence sit on your side. You stop pecking. And this is the hardest thing you will ever do, because everything in your body will scream at you to reach out, to fix it, to restore the connection. The withdrawal will feel like illness. The absence will feel like loss. You will rationalize 1,000 reasons to break your own silence. But if you can sit in that discomfort, if you can let the craving exist without acting on it, something shifts. The lever loses its power. The person becomes just a person again. And you begin to remember that you were whole before they arrived. You will be whole after they're gone. The addiction breaks when you stop feeding it. But be prepared for what comes next, because when you stop playing the game, when you withdraw your attention and your chase, the person holding the lever will often do something unexpected. They will try to pull you back in. And that's when you see the blueprint most clearly. That's when you realize that the unpredictability was never random. It was always a strategy. But what if conflict itself is engineered? What if the fights, the tension, the very arguments that drain you? What if they aren't accidents either? What if some people don't just create distance? They create battles. Chapter 5. Manufactured Tension. You know the feeling, the argument that came from nowhere, the tension that thickened the air for no reason you could name. You were having a normal conversation, a peaceful moment, and then a shift, a subtle provocation, a question that felt like a trap. And suddenly, you are off balance, defending yourself against an accusation you never saw coming. Some chaos is not accidental. This is the fifth battlefield, and it is perhaps the most disorienting of all, because here the weapon is not silence, not attention, not even word. The weapon is instability itself. The deliberate creation of tension designed to keep you guessing, keep you off balance, keep you permanently uncertain of where you stand. Think of the person who seems to thrive on small conflicts, the friend who finds something to critique in your happiest moment, the partner who picks a fight right before an important event, leaving you rattled and distracted, the colleague who stirs up drama in a calm team, then steps back to watch the chaos unfold. You tell yourself they're just difficult. You tell yourself they're stressed. You search for reasons, for explanations, for any narrative that makes their behavior make sense. But what if the tension itself is the point? The surprising insight, the one that changes everything, is this. Confusion weakens perception. A mind caught in constant small storms cannot see clearly. It cannot plan. It cannot trust its own judgment. It can only react. And a person who is always reacting is a person who can be easily controlled. You have experienced this without naming it. The relationship where you never felt quite settled, where you walked on eggshells, not because of any single threat, but because the ground beneath you was always shifting. One day they were warm, the next distant. One conversation flowed easily. The next was mined with triggers you couldn't predict. You spent so much energy navigating the instability that you stopped asking the fundamental question. Why is it unstable at all? Because stability is a choice. Peace is a choice. And when someone consistently chooses the opposite, it is not an accident. It is a tactic. Let's look closer at how this works. Manufactured tension often begins with something small, a loaded comment disguised as a joke. "Oh, you're wearing that again?" They laugh, so you laugh too, but something stings, you file it away. Then a question that implies fault. "Why didn't you call me back earlier?" You explain. But the question hangs there, suggesting you should have known to call, should have prioritized them, should have done something differently. Then a sudden coldness, a withdrawal of warmth for no apparent reason. You ask what's wrong. Nothing, they say, but their tone says everything. And now you're searching, probing, trying to solve a problem they won't admit exists. Do you see the pattern? Each individual event is small, minor, almost deniable, but together they create a current, a constant low-grade hum of anxiety that becomes the background music of your interaction with them. You are never fully at ease. You are never fully safe. And because you are never fully safe, you are never fully yourself. This is the goal. A destabilized person is easier to manage. A person who doubts their own perceptions will rely on yours. A person who is constantly trying to fix something will be too busy to notice that the thing that needs fixing is the dynamic itself. Think of the most confusing relationship in your life, the one where you often walked away thinking, "What just happened?" The one where conversations felt like puzzles you couldn't solve. The one where you found yourself explaining, justifying, apologizing for things you still didn't understand. Now look at it through this lens. Was the confusion accidental, or was it engineered? Because here is the truth that is hard to accept. Some people are not interested in resolution. They are interested in process. The process of keeping you engaged, keeping you off balance, keeping you emotionally invested in solving a problem that has no solution. Every time you try to bring clarity, they introduce a new variable. Every time you try to find solid ground, they shift the terrain. The argument is never about what it seems to be about. It is always about maintaining the tension. You ask, "Why are you angry?" They say, "I'm not angry," but they act angry. You ask again. They say, "I'm tired of you asking if I'm angry." Now you're defending your question instead of addressing the original issue. The conversation has spiraled into a meta-conversation, and the original feeling, the distance, the coldness, the unspoken accusation, remains untouched, waiting for the next round. This is the architecture of manufactured tension. It creates a loop you try to resolve, which creates more tension, which makes you try harder to resolve. You become the one doing all the emotional labor, while they simply react or don't. Their passivity becomes activity. Their silence becomes speech. Their confusion becomes your problem. And through it all, you lose something vital. You lose your internal compass. You stop trusting your own feelings because your feelings have been wrong so many times before. You thought things were good. They weren't. You thought things were bad. They got better. You thought you understood. You didn't. After enough cycles, you give up on understanding. You just react. You just survive. You just try to keep the peace. But keeping the peace is not the same as having peace. Keeping the peace is a full-time job with no salary. It is managing someone else's instability at the cost of your own stability. It is absorbing their chaos so you don't have to feel it, only to realize that you have become chaotic yourself. The internal conflict here is the slow erosion of your own reality. You begin to wonder, am I too sensitive? Am I creating drama? Am I imagining things? These questions are the fingerprints of the tactic. When you are asking whether your perceptions are real, you are no longer trusting yourself, and when you no longer trust yourself, you can be guided anywhere. The quietest battles are fought in this fog, the arguments that go nowhere, the tensions that never resolve, the relationships that consume more energy than they provide. You stay because you hope for clarity. You stay because you want to understand. You stay because leaving without understanding feels like failure. But what if the lack of understanding is the point? What if you are not meant to understand, only to stay? Stop, breathe. Look at the pattern, not the moments. Look at the current, not the waves. Ask yourself not what each argument was about, but what all the arguments had in common. The answer, more often than not, is this: they kept you close. They kept you trying. They kept you emotionally invested in a dynamic that, if it were stable, you might have left long ago. Manufactured tension is not about conflict. It is about connection. A twisted, unstable connection, but connection nonetheless. And for someone who fears genuine intimacy, who fears being truly known and truly left, this unstable connection is safer. It gives them control. It ensures you are always reaching, always striving, always a little off balance, and never quite close enough to see them clearly. But what happens when the fog starts to clear? What happens when you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop trying to solve the unsolvable? What happens when you name the pattern and refuse to play? When confusion fails, projection begins. When they can no longer make you doubt reality, they will try to give you theirs. They will take everything they feel about themselves, their shame, their fear, their inadequacy, and place it squarely on your shoulders. And you will find yourself carrying a weight that was never yours to bear. Chapter 6. Psychological projection. The blame shift. They accuse you of what they're doing. You know this feeling. The conversation is turned somehow, and suddenly you are the one on trial. You came to address a concern, a hurt, a pattern you noticed, but within minutes, you are defending yourself against charges you never anticipated. You are being called selfish by the person who never asks how you are. You are being told you're too sensitive by the person who just spent an hour criticizing you. You are being accused of lying by someone whose words and actions have never aligned. And you stand there, holding their accusation like a hot stone, wondering how you became the defendant in a case you didn't know was filed. This is psychological projection, and it is the most sophisticated weapon in the silent war, because it doesn't just hurt you, it makes you hurt yourself. It places their flaws in your hands and convinces you they belong there. Let's look closely at how this works. Projection is a defense mechanism, first named by Sigmund Freud over a century ago. It occurs when someone cannot accept a quality in themselves, a flaw, a feeling, a desire, so they unconsciously attribute it to someone else. The cheating partner who constantly accuses you of infidelity, the insecure friend who tells you that you're jealous of them, the person who cannot manage their own anger who tells you that you have an anger problem. On the surface, it's absurd, but in the moment, it's devastating, because their accusation lands in the most vulnerable part of you, the part that already doubts itself. Think of the last time someone projected onto you. Did they accuse you of not caring enough? While you were the one always reaching out, always checking in, always holding the connection together. Did they tell you that you were being manipulative? While you were the one constantly second-guessing yourself, trying to be honest, trying to be clear, did they say you were the one creating drama, while you were the one desperately seeking peace? The accusation itself is a mirror, but it's a distorted mirror reflecting their face, not yours. And yet, you look into it and begin to search for the flaw they describe. You wonder, am I selfish? Am I cold? Am I crazy? You start to question your own reality, your own motives, your own heart. This is the damage. Not the accusation itself, but the self-doubt it seeds. The surprising insight, the one that can set you free, is this: a projection is always a confession. When someone accuses you of something without evidence, without proportion, without reason, they are not telling you about yourself. They are telling you about themselves. They are handing you their shame wrapped in an accusation, hoping you'll carry it so they don't have to. But you don't know this in the moment. In the moment, you feel the sting. You feel the injustice. You feel the desperate need to correct their perception, to prove them wrong, to show them who you really are. And so you explain, you justify, you offer evidence of your goodness, your loyalty, your love. You try to defend a self that never needed defending until they attacked it. And while you're busy defending, they are watching. They are seeing how much energy it takes to make you prove yourself. They are learning that they can control you simply by questioning you. They have discovered that an accusation, even a false one, costs them nothing and costs you everything. This is the dynamic that keeps you trapped. You become invested in their opinion of you. You need them to see you correctly. You need them to withdraw the false charge and acknowledge the truth. But they won't, because the false charge is doing exactly what they need it to do. It's keeping you focused on them. It's keeping you performing. It's keeping you small. Consider the relationship where you constantly find yourself explaining your intentions, explaining your feelings, explaining your past, explaining your choices. You spend hours crafting the perfect defense only to have them shift the charges. You finally convince them you're not selfish, and suddenly they're accusing you of being distant. You prove you're not distant, and now you're too clingy. The target moves because the target was never the point. The point was to keep you in the arena, fighting for their approval. And here is the cruelest irony. The more you defend, the more guilty you appear. Because a truly innocent person, they suggest, wouldn't need to defend so much. A truly secure person would let the accusation pass. But you cannot let it pass, because their accusation has activated something ancient in you. The need to be seen accurately by your tribe, to maintain your standing, to prove you are not the threat they claim you are. You are fighting for social survival, and they know it. So what do you do when you recognize projection? When you feel the familiar shift, the moment you become the accused instead of the accuser? First, you pause. You recognize that their emotion is disproportionately intense for the situation. You notice that their accusation doesn't quite fit. It's like a shoe in the wrong size, close enough to seem possible, but wrong enough to pinch. Then you resist the urge to defend. This is the hardest part. Everything in you will scream to correct them, to explain, to offer proof. But you must understand, your explanation will not land. They are not confused. They are projecting, and projection is not resolved by evidence. It is resolved only by self-awareness, which you cannot give them. Instead, you hold the accusation lightly. You look at it, you turn it over, and you ask yourself, is this true? Not in their eyes, but in reality. And if it is not true, you let it sit. You do not pick it up. You do not carry it. You leave it with them where it belongs. This is the internal conflict that projection creates. The war between taking responsibility and taking blame. A healthy person takes responsibility for their actual flaws. They own their mistakes. They seek to grow. But a person caught in projection takes blame for everything. Their flaws, your flaws, the weather, the mood, the history of the world. They become a sponge for accusations that were never theirs to absorb. You must learn the difference. You must learn to say internally, if not aloud, that feeling you're describing, that fear you're naming, that belongs to you. I see it, and I am not carrying it. But this is lonely work. Because when you stop carrying their projections, they often intensify. They accuse you of being cold, of not caring, of refusing to engage. They paint you as the villain for not accepting the role they've written for you. And you will feel the pull to step back into character, just to restore peace, just to make it stop. Don't. The peace you restore by accepting their projections is not peace. It's a truce in which you surrender your reality. And that is a war you cannot afford to lose. The quietest battles are fought in this space between accusation and identity. The moment someone tells you who you are, and you must decide whether to believe them. The moment someone hands you their shame, and you must decide whether to hold it. The moment someone projects their darkness onto you, and you must decide whether to become their shadow. You are not their shadow. You are not their shame. You are not the container for everything they cannot face in themselves. You are a separate person, with your own light and your own darkness, and you alone get to name what you carry. But what if the voice accusing you isn't outside? What if the voice projecting, blaming, shaming has moved inside? What if you have internalized the accusations so deeply that you no longer need them to tell you you're not enough, because you tell yourself, And sometimes the battlefield isn't outside, it's inside you. Chapter 7. The War Within, Your Inner Saboteur. What if your mind learned warfare before you did? You have felt it, that voice, the one that whispers doubt at the worst possible moment, the one that tells you you're not ready, not good enough, not worthy of the very thing you've been working toward. You're about to speak up, and it says, "They'll think you're stupid." You're about to trust someone, and it says, "Remember what happened last time." You're on the edge of peace, and it says, "This won't last. Something bad is coming." You call it anxiety. You call it overthinking. You call it being realistic. But what if it's something else? What if that voice is not yours at all? This is the seventh battlefield, and it is the most intimate, the most confusing, the most personal of all. Because here the enemy does not wear a stranger's face, it wears yours. It speaks in your voice. It knows your history, your fears, your softest places. It has access to every memory, every wound, every moment you were made to feel small, and it uses all of it to keep you exactly where you are. The war is not just outside, it is inside you, and it started long before you knew you were fighting. Let's go back. Not to last week, not to last year, but to the earliest moments when you learned what love required, what safety demanded, what connection cost you. Maybe it was a parent whose warmth depended on your performance. Maybe it was a friend who turned on you without warning. Maybe it was a moment of humiliation that etched itself into your nervous system. Whatever it was, your mind learned a lesson. The world is not safe. People are not reliable. I must be on guard, and so it built a protector. A guardian designed to scan for threats, to predict danger, to keep you small and safe. This protector learned to read microexpressions, to anticipate rejection, to hear the criticism beneath the compliment. It learned to pull you back from the edge of vulnerability before you could be pushed. It learned to whisper warnings that sounded like wisdom. You called it intuition, but it was conditioning. The surprising insight, the one that cracks everything open, is this: your inner saboteur is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to save you. It is trying to save you from a danger that no longer exists. The voice that tells you not to trust is not evil. It is a soldier still fighting a war that ended years ago. It is a security system programmed for a threat that has long since left the building. But you don't know that in the moment. In the moment you believe the voice. You trust the fear. You let the warning shape your choice. And so you stay quiet when you should speak. You walk away when you should stay. You push someone away before they can leave you first. You protect yourself from a pain that might never come. And in doing so, you create the very loneliness you were trying to avoid. This is the tragedy of the inner war. The defenses you built to survive your past become the prison that prevents your future. The walls that kept out predators now keep out love. The armor that stopped bullets now stops embrace. You are safe, but you are also alone. Think of the pattern you cannot break. The relationship you sabotage just as it starts to feel good. The opportunity you abandon just as success becomes possible. The moment of intimacy when you feel the sudden urge to run. You tell yourself it wasn't right, they weren't right, the timing was wrong. But underneath, if you are honest, you know, you made it wrong, you found the flaw. You created the exit, because staying felt more dangerous than leaving. Why? Because your nervous system learned long ago that good things end, that love leaves, that safety is an illusion. And so it takes control before you can be hurt again. It would rather you be alone by choice than abandoned by fate. It would rather you fail on your own terms than succeed and wait for the fall. This is the internal conflict that never stops, the war between the self that wants to heal and the self that wants to survive, the self that knows you are safe now and the self that remembers when you weren't, the self that reaches for connection and the self that flinches at the slightest warmth, because warmth once meant danger. You have lived this conflict 1,000 times without naming it. The anxiety before a date with someone who actually likes you. The dread before a job interview for a role you actually want. The urge to cancel plans with friends who actually see you. The feeling that something must be wrong because nothing feels wrong. Your mind cannot rest in peace. It only knows how to rest in war. So it creates war. It finds threats. It manufactures problems. It scans the horizon for storms because calm seas feel unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe. You become the architect of your own chaos, not because you want chaos, but because chaos is what you know. Chaos is home. Chaos is where your protector learned to thrive. And the people around you, they don't understand. They see you pushing away love, rejecting opportunity, choosing isolation. They tell you to relax, to trust, to let go. They don't know that letting go feels like falling. They don't know that your protector is screaming at you to hold on, to stay vigilant, to not be fooled again. You cannot explain it to them. You can barely explain it to yourself. All you know is the weight. The constant, quiet weight of a war you never enlisted in, fought with weapons you never chose, against an enemy that lives in your own mind. The quietest battles are fought here, not in arguments, not in silences, not in manufactured tension, but in the small hours of the night when you lie awake and wonder why you cannot simply be happy, why peace feels like waiting for the other shoe to drop, why love feels like a trap you're about to spring on yourself. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are a person whose mind learned to fight before it learned to rest. You are a survivor of a war that happened long ago, still carrying the strategies that kept you alive, even though they are now killing your peace. But here is the question you must eventually face. The question that will determine whether you remain a soldier or become something else. If your protector is so wise, so vigilant, so effective, why are you still suffering? Why are you still alone? Why are you still small? If the goal was to keep you safe, you are safe. But safe is not the same as alive. Safe is not the same as whole. Safe is not the same as free. Your protector doesn't care about your freedom. It cares about your survival. And survival in its mind means avoiding risk at any cost, including the risk of joy, including the risk of love, including the risk of being fully, vulnerably, beautifully alive. So what do you do with a protector you cannot fire? With a soldier who will not stand down? With a voice that speaks in your own tongue and claims to have your best interests at heart? You do not fight it. You cannot win a war against yourself. Instead, you listen, you acknowledge it. You say to that voice, I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me. I know you remember the pain, but I am not there anymore. And you don't have to carry this alone. You begin to separate the past from the present. You begin to question the warnings. You begin to take small risks, tiny betrayals of your protector's expectations. You stay in the conversation when you want to flee. You accept the compliment when you want to deflect. You let someone see you when you want to hide. And each time you do, your protector learns something new. It learns that the world has changed, that you have changed, that the dangers it still scans for may no longer exist. It learns slowly, painfully to trust. But this healing comes with a cost you haven't considered. Because if you heal, if you lay down your armor, if you silence the voice that kept you vigilant, what replaces it? Who are you without the war? What do you do with all that energy, all that attention, all that finely tuned perception that once kept you alive? If you heal, do you lose your edge? Chapter 8. Empathy versus Power. The quiet personality's dilemma. You feel everything. The shift in the room when someone enters, the weight beneath their words, the sadness they don't express, the anger they hide, the fear that leaks through their smile you notice, you absorb, you carry. And you have been told your whole life that this is your greatest gift, but no one told you what it would cost. This is the 8th battlefield, and it is the one that breaks the kindest among you. Because here, the war is not fought with weapons you can name. It is fought with your own heart, your empathy. The very thing that makes you connect, understand, and love becomes the tool of your own diminishment. You know this dilemma. You walk into a room and you feel the tension before anyone speaks. You know who is struggling, who is performing, who is silently asking for help. And because you feel it, you try to fix it. You smooth the edges. You lighten the mood. You give and give and give. because giving is what you do. It is who you are. But somewhere along the way, you notice something. The people who take the most are not the ones who give back. The ones who lean on you are not there when you need to lean. The ones who claim to value your empathy are often the ones who drain it dry, and you are left exhausted, wondering why no one seems to notice that you are empty. Kindness without boundaries becomes surrender. This is the truth no one taught you. Empathy without protection is not a gift. It is an open door. And through that door walk people who will take everything you have and call you generous for letting them. Think of the quiet personalities in your life, the listeners, the peacemakers, the ones who remember your birthday, who ask how you're really doing, who offer a safe place to land. They are the glue of families, the heart of friendships, the soul of teams. And they are often the most overlooked, the most taken for granted, the most silently exhausted. You may be one of them. The surprising insight, the one that shifts everything, is this: empathy is not weakness, but unguarded empathy becomes weakness in strategic spaces. In a world where some people are playing power games, your openness is not seen as a gift. It is seen as an opportunity. Your willingness to understand becomes their chance to manipulate. Your desire for peace becomes their way to win without fighting. You have experienced this without naming it. The friend who always comes to you with their problems, but disappears when you need to share yours. The partner who expects you to understand their moods, their silences, their withdrawals, but never extends the same understanding to you. The colleague who volunteers you for work because you're so helpful and takes credit when it's done. Each interaction on its own is small, but together they form a pattern of giving without receiving, of pouring without being filled, of being the one who holds everyone else up while no one holds you. And here is the cruelest part. When you finally try to set a boundary, when you finally say "I can't," or "I need," or "this is too much," the reaction is often swift and harsh. You are told you've changed. You are told you're being selfish. You are told that your empathy was conditional after all. The very people who benefited from your openness now punish you for closing the door. Why? Because your empathy served them. Your understanding made their lives easier. Your willingness to carry their weight freed them from carrying it themselves. And now that you're stopping, they have to feel their own feelings, solve their own problems, face their own lives, and they resent you for it. This is the dilemma of the quiet personality. You can stay open and be drained, or you can close and be blamed. There is no option where everyone thanks you for protecting yourself. So what do you do? How do you keep your empathy without losing yourself? How do you stay kind without becoming a target? You begin by understanding that empathy is not permission. Feeling someone's pain does not mean you must fix it. Understanding someone's struggle does not mean you must carry it. Compassion without action is not cruelty. It is discernment. It is the wisdom to know which burdens are yours to bear and which belong to the one carrying them. You learn to pause before responding, to feel the pull to help, and then to ask, is this mine? Is this needed? Is this sustainable? You learn that no is not a rejection of their humanity. It is a protection of your own. You learn to watch how people react when you set a boundary. This is the test. The ones who truly value you will respect your limits. They may be surprised. They may need time to adjust, but they will not punish you for protecting yourself. The ones who only valued what you could give them will reveal themselves. They will accuse you of selfishness, of coldness, of changing. And in their accusation, they will show you the truth. They were never with you for you. They were with you for what you provided. This is painful to see, but it is also freeing. Because once you see it, you can stop giving. You can redirect your empathy toward those who reciprocate, who see you, who hold space for you in return. You can build a life where your kindness is matched, not exploited. The quietest battles are fought in this choice. The choice to close the door on people who only take. The choice to let them be angry, to let them leave, to let them tell their version of the story where you became the villain. The choice to trust that your worth is not proven by how much you give, but by how well you are loved. You are not selfish for wanting reciprocity. You are not cold for needing rest. You are not unkind for protecting your energy. You are a person with a finite heart, and that heart deserves to be held as often as it holds. But here is the deeper question, the one that lingers after the boundaries are set and the takers have gone. If you stop being the giver, the listener, the one who smooths and soothes and carries, who are you? What is your role in a world that only seemed to value you for what you provided? You must learn that your value was never in your utility. It was in your presence. Your empathy is not a resource to be mined. It is a quality to be shared with those who can receive it without consuming it. Your quiet nature is not a weakness to be exploited. It is a depth that only some can meet. And those who can meet it, they are rare. They are the ones who ask how you are and wait for the answer. Who notice when you're quiet in a different way? Who offer space for your feelings without making you manage theirs? They are the ones who make empathy feel like exchange, not extraction. Find them, hold them, let them hold you. But what if the power you seek is not in setting boundaries, but in something else entirely? What if the quiet personality's dilemma is not about giving less, but about understanding what true strength looks like? You have been told your whole life that power is loud, assertive, dominant. But the people who drained you, were they truly powerful? Or were they simply skilled at taking from those who didn't know how to protect themselves? Real power may look nothing like what you've been taught. Real power may be quiet, patient, present. Real power may be the ability to feel deeply without being destroyed by what you feel. To give generously without becoming empty. To be kind without being weak. But what does real power actually look like? Chapter 9. Calm Dominance. The Power of Emotional Neutrality. The most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest. It is not the one who argues, who threatens, who demands attention. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who feels everything and reacts to nothing. You have walked into rooms and felt it. The presence that shifts the atmosphere without moving. The person who watches, who listens, who does not flinch at provocation or brighten at praise. They are not cold. They are not distant. They are simply still. And their stillness commands something that noise never can. It commands respect. It commands attention. It commands a strange, uneasy awe. This is calm dominance. And it is the most powerful position in any silent war. You have experienced the opposite. You know what it feels like to be reactive. To feel the heat rise in your chest when someone provokes you. To defend yourself against an accusation that doesn't deserve defense. To explain, justify, argue, plead. Your energy spilling out like water from a cracked vessel, while the other person watches, calm, satisfied, in control. You walk away exhausted, having given everything, and they walk away having taken it. The reactive person always loses, not because they are wrong, but because they are visible. Their emotions become a map. Their buttons become levers. Their needs become weapons the other side can use. Now think of the person who does not react. The person who hears an insult and simply pauses. Who receives a provocation and does not rise to it? Who sits in silence while another person flails, waiting, watching, untouched? What can you do to someone who does not need your approval, does not fear your rejection, does not react to your games? You have no entry point, no leverage, no way in. This is the hidden truth of calm dominance. Stillness intimidates, not because it is aggressive, but because it is illegible. A person who does not react cannot be read, and a person who cannot be read cannot be controlled. Think of the last time you lost your calm. The argument where your voice rose, your heart raced, your words tumbled out in a desperate attempt to be heard. In that moment, you were completely visible. The other person could see exactly what mattered to you, exactly where you hurt, exactly what you needed from them. And whether they helped or harmed you, they did so from a position of knowing. You handed them the map to your soul. Now imagine that same situation, but differently. Imagine the provocation comes, and you feel the heat rise. You feel the urge to defend, to explain, to fight. But instead of acting, you pause, You breathe. You let the feeling pass through you without attaching to it. You look at the person, not with anger, not with fear, but with simple, quiet attention. And you say nothing. What happens in that silence? The other person loses their footing. They expected a reaction. They planned for a reaction. Your reaction was their goal, but you gave them nothing. Your stillness becomes a mirror, reflecting their own agitation back at them. They feel the discomfort they intended for you. They become the one who is seen, exposed, reactive. The power shifts without a word. This is the surprising insight. Non-reactivity is not passivity. It is the most active choice you can make. It requires more strength than shouting, more courage than fighting, more discipline than proving yourself right. It is the choice to hold your center when everything around you tries to pull you off it. You have seen this in nature. The alpha in any animal group is not the one who makes the most noise. It is the one who is calm, who observes, who moves only when movement serves a purpose. The loud, frantic animal is the one who is afraid. The still, watching animal is the one who is safe. In human interactions, the same principle applies. The person who needs to prove their power is announcing that they don't have it. The person who needs to be heard is confessing that they feel unheard. The person who cannot tolerate silence is revealing that they cannot tolerate themselves. But the one who sits quietly, who watches, who waits, that person is a mystery, and mystery in any social dynamic is power. You can cultivate this. It begins with the smallest moments. The next time someone provokes you, pause before responding. Count to 3. Breathe. Let the initial surge of emotion pass. In that pause, you reclaim your agency. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to justify, to make someone understand, stop. Ask yourself, do they want to understand, or do they want to keep you in the position of explaining? Often, the demand for explanation is not a request for clarity. It is a bid for control. It keeps you small, defensive, focused on them. Refuse the game. Say less. Let your actions and your presence speak for you. The next time silence falls and you feel the urge to fill it, resist. Let the silence breathe. Let the other person feel its weight. In that space, you will learn everything about them. The ones who cannot bear silence will rush to fill it, revealing themselves in their haste. The ones who can sit with you in quiet are the ones worth keeping. But calm dominance is not about manipulation. It is not about winning at the expense of others. It is about sovereignty. It is about being so rooted in your own worth that no one else's opinion can shake you. It is about feeling your feelings fully, the anger, the fear, the hurt, without letting them drive your actions. It is about knowing that you are enough, whether you are applauded or ignored, loved or left. This is the internal work that no one sees, the hours of sitting with your own discomfort, the practice of breathing through the urge to react, the painful process of learning that your value does not depend on being understood, validated, or approved. It is lonely work, but it is the work that makes you dangerous in the only way that matters, dangerous to those who would try to control you. Because when you are calm, truly calm, you become unpredictable. Not in a chaotic way, but in a way that cannot be manipulated. People who rely on your reactions to navigate their own behavior will find themselves lost. They will try harder to provoke you. They will escalate. And when you remain still, they will reveal themselves completely. Their desperation, their need, their fear, all of it will become visible in the light of your calm. And you will watch, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. You will see them clearly for the first time, and from that clarity you will choose whether to stay, to leave, to speak, to remain silent. The choice will be yours, not because you have more power than them, but because you have power over yourself. The quietest battles are fought in this space, the space between stimulus and response, the space where you choose not to fight, the space where you let them have their anger, their accusations, their games, and you simply remain. You are not conquered because you were never at war, you were at peace. And peace, in a room full of people fighting for control, is the most intimidating thing of all. But here is the question you must eventually face, the question that lingers after you've mastered your reactions, after you've learned to sit in stillness, after you've become the calmest person in the room. If calm dominance is so powerful, what is it actually for? Is it a weapon to wield against those who would harm you? Is it a shield to protect your peace? Or is it something else entirely? Something quieter, deeper, more essential? Yet the greatest psychological war is invisible, and sometimes the victory is not in winning. It is in no longer needing to fight. Chapter 10. Social Hierarchies. The unspoken ranking system. Every group has a ladder. Most pretend it doesn't exist. You have felt it. The moment you walk into a room, a meeting, a party, a family gathering, and something shifts. Before anyone speaks, before any word is exchanged, you sense it. The subtle architecture of who matters here. Who commands attention without asking? Who is watched? Who is ignored? Who is performing? Who is judging? The air itself feels different around certain people, and you, without thinking, adjust. This is the 10th battlefield, and it is the most ancient of all. Long before there were words for psychology, before there were books on influence or seminars on power, there were hierarchies. Every human group, from the smallest tribe to the largest corporation, organizes itself into ranks, not officially, not democratically, but inevitably. And the ranking happens in silence. You have been ranked 1,000 times without knowing it. In the way people's eyes move past you to someone behind you. In the way your ideas are repeated by someone else and suddenly heard. In the way you are introduced or not introduced. When you enter a conversation, these are not random events. They are signals. They are the visible traces of an invisible ladder. The surprising insight, the one that changes how you see every social interaction, is this: you are never just talking. You are never just sharing. You are never just present. You are being positioned, and you are positioning others. Every glance, every pause, every subtle shift in tone is a negotiation of where everyone stands. Think of the last gathering you attended. Was there a person who seemed to anchor the room? The one people oriented toward, even when they weren't speaking. The one whose laugh was louder, whose stories were listened to more intently, whose absence was noticed. Now think of the person who seemed to fade into the background, the one whose comments were overlooked, whose presence was tolerated but not sought. What separated them? Was it wealth, beauty, charisma? Perhaps. But often it was something subtler. It was status. And status, you may have noticed, is not always earned. Sometimes it is simply claimed. You have seen people claim status without deserving it. The colleague who takes credit for work they didn't do. The acquaintance who name drops to borrow reflected glory. The family member who speaks with authority on subjects they know nothing about. These people understand something that polite society denies. Status is not a reward for merit. It is a performance, and the best performer often wins. This is the hidden truth of social hierarchies. They are not fixed. They are negotiated in real time in every interaction. And the negotiation happens below the level of conscious thought. You don't decide to defer to someone. You simply feel yourself deferring. You don't decide to ignore someone. You simply feel them fading from your attention. The ladder builds itself through a MILIO, choices you never know you're making. Let's look closer at how this works. Picture a conversation between 3 people. One speaks with certainty, with pauses that demand attention, with eye contact that holds rather than flees. Another speaks tentatively, apologizing for their opinions, glancing away, rushing to fill silences. The third watches, waiting for an opening, measuring their words against the others. Who will be remembered after this conversation? Who will be quoted? Who will be approached later by others who want to connect with the important person? The answers are predictable, and they have almost nothing to do with the truth or value of what was said. The quietest battles are fought in these moments. The battle to hold the floor. The battle to be heard over interruption. The battle to have your idea attributed to you instead of to the person who repeated it louder. You have lost these battles without knowing they were battles. You have walked away from conversations feeling unseen, unheard, smaller, and you blamed yourself. You thought you weren't interesting enough, smart enough, confident enough, but the truth may be simpler and more brutal. You lost a status negotiation you didn't know you were in. Think about interruption. It is one of the most common and most ignored signals of hierarchy. When someone interrupts you and you stop speaking, you have just accepted lower status. When someone interrupts you and you continue, or call out the interruption, you have held your ground. But notice how rarely anyone calls out interruption. Instead, we swallow it. We let our thought die. We tell ourselves it wasn't important anyway, but it was, and the interrupter knows it. They have just taken a small step up the ladder, using you as a rung. Think about eye contact. Who looks away first? In many species, sustained eye contact is a challenge. Breaking it first is a sign of submission. In human conversations, the same dynamic plays out, soften but present. The higher status person can hold gaze longer, can look away when they choose, can afford to seem uninterested. The lower status person watches, waits, seeks approval. You have felt the difference between being looked at and being seen. Think about physical space. Who takes up room? Who spreads out, leans back, claims territory? Who shrinks, crosses legs, makes themselves small? These are not just comfort choices. They are status signals. The person who occupies space is announcing without words that they belong here. The person who minimizes themselves is announcing the opposite. You have done both in different rooms without knowing why. The ladder is everywhere, but here is what you must understand. The ladder is not reality. It is perception, and perception can be shifted. You have seen people climb without moving. The person who walks into a room with quiet confidence, who speaks less but speaks with weight, who does not chase attention but allows it to come. They have not earned more than you. They have not achieved more than you, but they have mastered something you may not have learned, the art of stillness in a world of striving. They understand that status is often granted to those who seem not to need it. This is the internal conflict that hierarchies create. The war between wanting to be seen and wanting to be free of the game. You know the game is shallow. You know the rankings are arbitrary. You know that the loudest person is not the wisest, and the most deferred to is not the kindest. And yet, you feel the sting when you are overlooked. You feel the warmth when you are acknowledged. You cannot simply opt out, because the latter exists in the minds of others, and their perceptions shape your opportunities, your relationships, your life. So what do? Do you play the game? Do you learn the signals, perform the status, claim your place? Or do you refuse and accept the invisibility that often comes with refusal? The answer is neither. The answer is something more subtle. You learn to see the ladder without being controlled by it. You learn to move through hierarchies with awareness, not obsession. You learn to hold your ground without needing to stand on others. You learn that true status is not about being above anyone. It is about being so rooted in yourself that you are not shaken by where others place you. The people who climb without moving are not the ones desperately seeking attention. They are the ones who have stopped seeking. They have found a center that does not depend on the crowd. And because they do not need the ladder, they are free to move on it as they choose. Up when it serves them, down when it doesn't, sideways when the view is better elsewhere. They are not trapped by the game because they see it for what it is, a game. You can become this person. It starts with noticing. The next time you walk into a room, watch the hierarchy form. Notice who speaks, who listens, who is ignored. Notice how you adjust without thinking. And then, instead of adjusting, pause, breathe, choose. You do not have to play the role assigned to you. You do not have to shrink for those who claim space. You do not have to perform for those who grant attention. You can simply be present, fully yourself, and let the hierarchy rearrange itself around your stillness. It will, because stillness in a room full of striving is magnetic. It confuses the usual signals. It disrupts the ladder. It makes people wonder who you are, why you are not chasing, what you know that they don't. And in that wondering, they grant you something they rarely give. Attention without demand. Respect without performance. a place on the ladder that you did not climb to reach. The quietest battles are fought in this awareness. The battle to see the game without being consumed by it. The battle to be in the hierarchy without being of it. The battle to know your worth without needing the crowd to confirm it. And some people climb without moving. Chapter 11. The Invisible Operator. Master of subtle influence. You never see them coming. They move through rooms like shadows, present but unnoticed. In meetings, they speak last if they speak at all. In conversations, they listen more than they contribute. In conflicts, they are the calm center while others rage. You might pass them 100 times and never register their presence. And then, one day, you realize something. The outcome of every situation seems to bend in their direction. Decisions favor them, people trust them, opportunities find them, and you cannot explain how. This is the invisible operator, the master of subtle influence. And they have been in your life all along, wearing the face of someone you underestimated. The surprising insight, the one that reveals the entire architecture of silent warfare, is this. The most powerful person in any room is often the one who seems to have no power at all, because power that is seen can be resisted. Power that is felt cannot. Think of the people you instinctively trust, the ones who make you feel safe, heard, understood. They ask good questions. They remember small details. They never rush to judgment or demand attention. You open up to them without knowing why. You seek their opinion without being asked. You find yourself wanting their approval, their presence, their time. And you never stop to ask, why do I feel this way about them? What did they do to earn this place in my mind? The answer may be uncomfortable. They did nothing. They simply created the space for you to fill. And in that space, you gave them something precious. Your trust, your attention, your loyalty. Freely offered, never demanded. This is the art of the invisible operator. They do not take, they make you want to give. Let's look closer at how this works. The invisible operator has mastered strategic patience. They understand something that most people never learn. Timing is more powerful than force. A word spoken at the right moment carries more weight than a speech delivered at the wrong one. A question asked when you are ready to hear it shapes your thinking more than an answer imposed before you're ready to listen. They wait. They watch. They feel the current of the room, the mood of the moment, the unspoken needs of the people around them. And when the time is right, they move. Just enough. Just in time. Just where it matters. You have been shaped by these movements without knowing it. The friend who gently questioned a decision, planting a seed that grew into doubt. The colleague who offered a piece of information that changed your perspective. The partner who, in a quiet moment, reflected something back to you that you had never seen in yourself. Each interaction on its own was small, innocent, helpful even. But together, they form a pattern. A pattern of influence so subtle you never felt the hand that guided you. This is not necessarily evil. The invisible operator is not always a villain. They may be a mentor, a leader, a healer. They may use their skill to lift others, to create harmony, to guide groups toward wisdom. Influence is not manipulation. It is simply the ability to affect without forcing. And like any tool, it can be used for good or ill. The question is not whether someone influences you. The question is whether you know they are doing it. The invisible operator knows that direct pressure creates resistance. Tell someone what to do, and they will often do the opposite. Demand their attention, and they will look away. But ask a question that leads them to your conclusion. Offer a perspective they can adopt as their own. Create an environment where your idea feels like their idea. That is influence that cannot be resisted because it is never recognized. Think of the last time you changed your mind about something important. Did someone convince you, or did you simply come to see things differently? The invisible operator understands that people protect their autonomy fiercely. They will fight against being controlled, but they will embrace a conclusion they believe they reach themselves. So the operator does not argue. They plant seeds. They water them with patience, and they wait for the harvest. This is the internal conflict that the invisible operator creates in others. the quiet sense that something is happening just below awareness. You may have felt it, a vague unease after a conversation, a sense that you agreed to something you didn't quite intend, a feeling that you've been gently guided, though you cannot say how. You dismiss it. You tell yourself you're overthinking, but the feeling lingers, a ghost at the edge of your mind. What would it mean to trust that feeling? What would it mean to pause and ask, am I being influenced right now? Is this my idea or someone else's? Is this my desire or one they planted? The invisible operator counts on you not asking these questions. They count on your distraction, your trust, your willingness to believe that influence is always obvious. They hide in plain sight because you are not looking for them. You are looking for the loud ones, the obvious ones, the ones who announce their power. You never think to look at the quiet person in the corner who seems to have no agenda at all. But they always have an agenda. Everyone does. The difference is that the invisible operator's agenda is not shouted. It is whispered. It is woven into the fabric of everyday interaction so seamlessly that you never notice the thread. So how do you protect yourself? Not by becoming suspicious of everyone. Not by closing yourself off from influence entirely. That is impossible and undesirable. We are social creatures. We are meant to be shaped by each other. The goal is not to avoid influence. The goal is to be aware of it, to feel the hand on the tiller and choose whether to let it steer. You protect yourself by slowing down, by noticing the moments when you feel gently pulled, by asking after important conversations, what just happened here? What did I give? What did I receive? Was I heard or was I led? Was I understood or was I guided? You protect yourself by knowing yourself. The invisible operator's greatest weapon is your uncertainty. If you don't know what you want, they can want it for you. If you don't know what you believe, they can believe it for you. If you are unclear on your own boundaries, they can move them without your permission. Self-knowledge is the only armor that cannot be pierced. When you know your own mind, you can feel when someone else is trying to change it. But here is the deeper truth, the one that may unsettle you most. You are not only influenced by invisible operators, you are also one. You have shaped others without knowing it. You have planted seeds, guided conversations, created impressions. You have been the quiet force in someone else's story, the invisible hand they never saw. This is not a failing. It is simply the nature of human interaction. We are all influencing each other all the time. The question is whether we do it consciously, responsibly, with awareness of the power we hold. The invisible operator is not a separate species. It is a capacity within you, a capacity for patience, for observation, for timing, a capacity to affect without forcing, to guide without dominating. You can develop this capacity. You can learn to be more present, more aware, more intentional in your interactions. You can learn to speak less and mean more, to wait when waiting serves, to move when movement matters. But you must also learn when not to, because the greatest danger of mastering subtle influence is the temptation to use it for its own sake, to play the game because you can, to steer others because steering feels like power. And in that temptation, you risk becoming the very thing you fear, the invisible hand that controls without consent. The invisible operator's greatest challenge is not learning the skills. It is staying human while using them. It is remembering that influence is not ownership, that guiding is not controlling, that the people around you are not pieces on a board, but souls with their own wills, their own paths, their own freedom. To influence without violating is the highest art. And it requires something that no strategy can provide, genuine care for those you touch. The quietest battles are fought in this awareness, the battle to see clearly without becoming cold, to influence effectively without becoming manipulative, to move through the world with power without using that power to diminish others. You never see them coming, but perhaps that is the point. The greatest operators are not the ones who seek to be seen. They are the ones who seek to be effective. And effectiveness in the end is not about recognition. It is about results. It is about the quiet shaping of a world that never knows it was shaped. But there is one move even they fear. One force they cannot influence, cannot guide, cannot control. One thing that stops even the most patient operator in their tracks. Do you know what it is? Chapter 12. The Art of Peaceful Warfare. The ultimate victory is not domination, it is freedom. You have walked through fire to reach this moment. You have seen the smiles that dominate, the silences that control, the attention that addicts. You have felt the pull of intermittent reward, the fog of manufactured tension, the weight of projections that were never yours to carry. You have met your inner saboteur, felt the exhaustion of giving without boundaries, witnessed the invisible ladders of social hierarchies. You have seen the operator in the shadows, moving pieces you didn't know were on the board, and now you stand here changed, not because the war has ended, but because you finally see it. This is the final battlefield, the one that contains all others. The battle to remain awake in a world that profits from your sleep. The battle to choose your responses instead of reacting to provocations. The battle to be free, not from others, but from the part of you that others could once control. The surprising insight, the one that changes everything, is this: the war never ends, but your fear of it can. And when fear falls, the weapons others wield lose their power. A smile that once dominated becomes just a smile. A silence that once controlled becomes just a pause. An accusation that once shook you becomes just words, floating past, unable to land. You have felt this shift already in small moments. The time someone tried to provoke you and you simply breathed, watching them untouched. The time you recognized a projection and refused to carry it. The time you sat in silence, content in your own company, while another person's withdrawal meant nothing because you needed nothing from them. These moments are not accidents, they are evidence. Evidence that you are learning the art of peaceful warfare. Let's sit with that phrase for a moment. Peaceful warfare. It sounds like a contradiction. War is conflict, struggle, opposition. Peace is calm, stillness, rest. How can they exist together? They exist in you. They exist when you are fully aware of the battles being fought around you and within you, yet remain so rooted in your own center that no battle can dislodge you. You do not need to fight because you are not threatened. You do not need to win because you have nothing to prove. You do not need to dominate because you are already free. This is the state that the invisible operator fears. Not because you become powerful against them, but because you become unavailable to them. Their tools, your need for approval, your fear of rejection, your hunger for attention. These tools only work when you are reaching for something outside yourself. When you are whole within yourself, their tools find nothing to grip. They slide off like water from stone. Think of the last time you truly wanted something from someone. Their validation, their love, their recognition. In that wanting, you gave them power. Your happiness depended on them. Your peace required their cooperation. You were vulnerable, not because vulnerability is wrong, but because your vulnerability was attached to an outcome you could not control. Now think of a moment when you wanted nothing, when you were simply present, complete, needing nothing from the person across from you. How did that feel? Lighter, perhaps, safer. You were not waiting for them to give you something. You were not fearing they would take something away. You were simply there with them free. This is the internal transformation that peaceful warfare requires. Not the absence of desire, but the detachment of your worth from its fulfillment. You can want things, connection, love, success, without needing them to define you. You can reach for others without collapsing if they don't reach back. You can be in the game without being the game. The quietest battles are fought in this space. The space between wanting and needing. The space between engaging and attaching. The space where you can see the ladder, acknowledge its existence, and choose whether to climb it, ignore it, or build your own. You have been given the tools for this transformation, not as weapons to wield against others, but as awareness to hold within yourself. You know now that politeness can be a mask. You know silence can be a strategy. You know attention can be a currency. You know inconsistency can create addiction. You know tension can be manufactured. You know projection is confession. You know your inner critic was once a protector. You know empathy needs boundaries. You know stillness commands respect. You know hierarchies are performances. You know influence can be invisible. You know all of this, and knowing changes everything. Not because you will never be affected again, you are human, and humans are affected. But because when you are affected, you will know. You will feel the pull and name it. You will sense the game and see it. You will recognize the weapon and choose not to be its target. This is the emotional peak of your journey. Not invincibility, but awareness. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from being controlled by pain. Not the end of struggle, but the end of struggling against shadows. You stand now at the center of your own life. Not because you have defeated every opponent, but because you have stopped needing to. The people who once loomed large in your mind, the ones whose approval you sought, whose rejection you feared, whose games you played, they are still there. They still do what they do, but they no longer define you. Their smiles no longer dominate. Their silences no longer control. Their attention no longer validates. Their accusations no longer land, because you have something they cannot touch, something they cannot give and cannot take. You have yourself, fully, truly, deeply. You have learned that the only approval you ever really needed was your own. The only validation that lasts comes from within. The only peace that cannot be shattered is the peace you create for yourself. And here is the final truth, the one that will carry you forward. The war never ends. It will continue, as it always has, in every room you enter, every relationship you navigate, every silence you encounter. There will always be those who seek to dominate, to control, to influence without consent. There will always be hierarchies, games, strategies. The world does not change because you have awakened, but you change, and your change changes everything. You move through the world differently now. Not as a fighter, but as one who has transcended the need to fight. Not as a victor, but as one who no longer keeps score. Not as a master of others, but as the master of yourself. And in that mastery, you become something rare, something still, something free. The people who once drained you will find they cannot. The situations that once triggered you will find they don't. The voices that once haunted you will grow quiet. Not because they have stopped speaking, but because you have stopped listening. You have become the calm in every storm, not by controlling the storm, but by being so rooted that the storm cannot move you. This is the art of peaceful warfare. To see the battle and choose peace. To know the game and decline to play. To feel the pull and remain centered. To be fully human, vulnerable, feeling alive, while being fully sovereign over your own soul. You have walked through the silent wars and emerged not unscathed but awake. The wounds remain, but they no longer bleed. The memories remain, but they no longer control. The lessons remain, and they are now yours to use or to release as you choose. So go. Walk into the next room, the next conversation, the next relationship, the next silence. Walk in with open eyes and a quiet heart. See what there is to see. Feel what there is to feel. And when the silent wars begin, as they always will, you will know what to do. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer asking the wrong questions. You are no longer asking, what do they think of me? Or how can I win? Or what if I'm too sensitive? You are asking the only question that matters now. Am I at peace with myself? And the answer more and more will be yes. The war never ends, but now you see it. The silent wars never end, but now you see them. You understand the moves that once went unnoticed. And that awareness, that's power. If this audiobook changed the way you see the people around you, imagine what the next one will do. Don't let your mind settle into the ordinary. Keep sharpening it. Here's what I want you to do. Hit subscribe, but not just as a click. Commit to noticing the unseen. Like this video, but let it remind you to stay awake in every conversation. Share it with someone who needs to see the battlefield before it touches them. And comment below. Tell me what silent move you finally noticed in your own life. Your insight might just wake someone else up. Because awareness spreads faster than manipulation, and your mind deserves to be free.